Welcome to the Boone Podcast. I'm Bret Boone, and today on the program, I sit down with a fellow Trojan. He's a 12-time All-Star, 5 times he led the league in homers. He's a member of the A's and the Cardinals Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark McGwire. Mac, thanks for coming on the program.
Booney, good to see you again.
Great,
A couple weeks ago,
I
ran into each other.
long time. We for those of you listening to the Boone Podcast or watching via YouTube, we had a little bit of a function up at USC. Rod Dato, his field, the field at USC. It will be no more. They're doing a new one. So Mark and myself were up there. We had a little roundtable discussion. It was good. It was good catching up. All right, I've got something for you. I've got something special. I haven't done this on this platform yet. Mike's going to cue up a video, and I want you to tell me if you remember this, because I definitely do.
Fire up against Denny Graves, and Big Mac hammers one, and Bret Boone gloves it and gets knocked over. McGwire, impressed, salutes Boone, and right back at you, tough guy. Single and three.
What do you think that was off the bat?
All right. I was going to go. I'm telling you, because in the field we get hit a lot of balls. You get smoked at you, but once in a while you get one that was a little different. I remember talking to Larkin after that. I said that's the hardest ball I've ever caught, but it wasn't the velocity. It was you happened to catch it on a knuckleball as well, so it was doing this at me. And speaking of that, what do you think that was, exit velocity? I can't believe they can't measure with all the technology. How can they not go back to our generation and measure that? It's ridiculous.
120 plus, 120 plus.
It's got to be 120 plus.
I mean, yeah. Listen, I mean, I get excited when I see this exit velo stuff because it's like got to go back to. I'm like, God damn, I wish they had it back in our day. Holy shit. And most of the time, most of these exit velos are on ground balls and shit. You know what I mean? So, but when you brought that video up, I haven't seen that in years. But I still, when I hear exit velo, I think about that ball all the time, how it knocked you over. And first of all, I'm like, what the hell's he playing there for?
Right, because that was in our day. That was rare to be on that side of the bag for me. I mean, I personally didn't like it. But that was something probably that came from somebody, so we did it for
it worked.
I forget what the situation was. Yeah, on that side of the bag, but I do. You remember certain things in your career. I'm sure you have things that stand out to you, good, bad, and different. But there's not too many line drives I've caught that I have any remembrance of. Like, yeah, hey, remember that great play? No. But I'm sure you were right. I'm sure I made a great play on that one. I tell people, but that particular and I remember Danny Graves obviously was a teammate. He sent it to me one day and he said, "Do you remember this?" I said, "Do I remember this?" Yes, I do. There's not been a ball. I don't remember a ball ever knocking me over and me ever thinking and then telling my shortstop how hard it was hit and how much it was knuckling. So yes, of course I remember that.
Yeah.
Retired in 01. What do you miss and what don't you miss as a player?
What do I miss and what do I don't miss?
What do you miss and what don't you miss?
I don't miss the rain delays in the Midwest in St. Louis. I don't miss the late night games, flying in and having a day game the next day. What do I miss? I miss the work ethic of getting into the ballpark every day, working on my craft. I miss teammates. I miss competition. It's like when I retired in 01, golf was my first sport. When I was 5 years old, I played. My dad had polio, and the only thing that he could do was play golf. So he drug us out he had 5 boys and I have 4 brothers. So we always played golf at a very early age. And just the thought of the competition. So when I retired, I got back into golf. And the first thing I did was start doing competitions. it turned out that I sat there watching, waiting for like an hour and a half on a par 5 at some tournament, and you got these young bucks waiting to go for it every par 5. I just looked at myself like, what am I doing this for? I'm retired. I should be enjoying it. But golf, I tell you the truth, I just miss the competition. I think everybody will say that, and you hear it time and time again. You probably have done this too. Like, what do you do after your retirement? And these kids don't think about it today because there's so much money out there. They think once the game's over with, oh, I'm just going to go on and have a happy life. Well, you can, but you understand that the game of baseball is probably less than a third of your life spent. And so by the time when you retire, you have 3/4 of your life to live. What are you going to do with it? And people don't think about that. And, but the thing is, especially when we as athletes, the competition, not that there's not competition any other walk of life or any other business. Of course there is, but the competition of being an athlete is something that I really miss. The adrenaline, the focus. And you've been through that with your kids playing professionally. My kids are just starting right now. One's in college and one is with the Cubs, finishes first year with the Cubs. And then I go watch these games, and my insides get burning. I'm sure it did with you. It's just like, man, I wish I could be out there again. I know that's sort of a long answer, but it's just
right.
like,
And you wish you could help your kids. Like, no, come on.
yeah.
You got to know in that situation he's going to do that. You run all these scenarios. I don't know about you, but I found it. I mean, what we do is so hard, and hitting in general is so hard. Yes, it tends to get easier as we step away, but when you really have a moment, you can go back to go, no, this is really hard. I know for me, watching my kids play was tougher than playing, because
Oh,
you want it for them so bad. But really, once that game starts, I always say, once that national anthem ends, you're on your own, buddy. As
yeah,
soon as you walk, you're on your own.
without a doubt. And we as parents and we as former athletes, how do you raise kids, and how do you raise them, especially as an athlete? You pass on knowledge. I mean, that's what it's all about. And we pass on our knowledge, and hopefully they understand it. Rome wasn't built in one day. And that's the way I look at things. And I have to understand, like my son that's with the Cubs, he's a pitcher, and he's only 19. So I have to understand he's only 19 years old. Where was I at 19 years old? I was at USC, and I think I was just getting home from Anchorage, Alaska, playing summer ball.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my gosh, and he's already professional. And then I have other sons entering his junior year at the University of San Diego, and coming off an injury, so he's all excited about getting ready for this next year in 24. So it's just one of those things. As a parent, we just, even though you get so anxious, you want it, and like my heartbeat gets up, but it's like I have to calm myself down, because I have to understand that. And I tell this all the time, and I'm sure you've done this. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to screw up, but the great ones understand it, and they build through that. And that's what I keep telling them all the time. Like, we made so many freaking mistakes, and nowadays it's like, we used to get yelled at, and we used to get out. We have to be out there on the field and ground ball after ground ball, or in the cage. And today it's almost like they're so easy with the kids today. They don't understand how to get through failure. But the understanding of what I try to pass on, even with the kids I work with today, that you are going to fail more than you are successful. And the great ones are the ones that overcome all that and know how to accomplish that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. You talk about, you bring up a great point on not knowing what to do in a lot of players. And I'll tell you, I thought I was the smartest guy in the block, and I retired when I was 37, and I knew what I was doing, Mac. And I just thought, I'm going to play baseball. And my attitude was, when I can't play second base every day, and wouldn't even consider being a part-time player, I said that I'm done, and I go off into the sunset. And I had a lot to learn. My father went right into the next year. He managed against the team. He was in the PCL, and he managed against my team when I was in AAA.
Wow.
Then he eventually went on. He was my bench coach in Cincinnati for a year, and then he got, he managed in Cincinnati, managed in Kansas City. My brother, same thing. he got off the field, he went into the booth, and now he's managing. And I went off thinking I'm going on vacation for the rest of my life. And I woke up a few years later and I'm looking around and all my buddies are kind of doing something. And
Right.
I'm just thinking I'm on this vacation for the rest of my life. And you're right. That's not what life is about. We
It's
play this
eye-opening.
game. It's eye opening. And when I talk to young kids today, I always tell them, especially the players that are getting to the end of their career, find out what you want to do. Keep your foot in the door
Mm,
somewhere. I'm not saying retire from a career and then go full tilt into something else. It's like, no, just
right.
keep these options open and just kind of dabble and stay in the fold because you need something to do. I remember playing golf when I was probably 25 years old. The season would end. We'd go home to wherever we go home. For me, it was Orlando. And I had a group that I played with on Saturday and Sunday. It was a bunch of old guys. And they were like 60, 70, 80 years old. To me at that time, that was off the charts. And they were all well to do and did really well for themselves in business. And I'd look at them, I go, why are you still grinding? Why are you still working? And they said, Booney, when you stop working, you start dying. And I never understood that. But then I did understand it. That's why that old guy was still getting up and doing his meetings and tending to business because we need to keep going in life.
Well, especially as an athlete. I mean, think about it. It's like, I mean, didn't you find after the season was over with, it took you probably 2, 3, 4 weeks to decompress because your
Yeah.
body's so used to going, hey, at 12:30, I got to go do this. And next thing you know, 2 o'clock, I'm in the cage. It's like, and it just took me a while to decompress. That's like once the season ended, I always found myself in Hawaii or Cabo. Like
Hmm.
right away, because I wanted to get away and just like not even think about if we didn't go to the playoffs, obviously not think about the other guys that are still playing. So it's a hard thing, and then to think about like when you retire, what are you going to do when you retire? And um, a lot of guys get into coaching, and then they find out there's there's more time you got to be at the ballpark as a coach than you do as a player, and then you're dealing with all these different personalities, and then you try to pass on knowledge. Not everybody's going to get it. I mean, it's a huge learning experience. Some guys are really good at it, but the thing is like if you didn't have a family, see, I got divorced very early after my first year in the big leagues, so I basically played single my whole career. I found my beautiful wife Stephanie, and at the end of my career, I got married when a year after I retired, and then I had a family. Next thing you know, I have 5 kids. So I have 6 total, but I have 5. And I'm raising kids right now. I just turned 60 a month ago, and I got 3 beautiful triplet girls that are 13 and 8th grade, and the other 2 are out of the
That,
house.
that that's unbelievable. When you
I
told me
know,
that the other day, I went,
I
"Well,
know.
I thought my twin boys are a lot. That's a lot."
Yeah, it's great. I've never been around girls until we had the triplets, and I've always been around boys. And I remember going to the OBGYN the day to find out that we had triplets, and all of a sudden the doc goes, "Hey, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3," and he goes, "Hey, Mark, you might want to think about selling some of that stuff." And, it's like that's some pretty powerful stuff, Mark. So, anyways, yeah, it was one of those things where obviously there's multiples that run on both sides of our family, never even thinking about it, and then all of a sudden 3 pop out, and it's truly a blessing. But it's been eye opening for me, never being around women and girls. It's like growing up, all of a sudden I get 3, and I didn't realize that they are so loud. They're loud. Girls are loud. The voices. I was like, I thought it was tough with raising 2 boys that are 15 months
Right.
apart. They're always wrestling. They're always fighting. But being loud is a little bit different than the wrestling and fighting. So, see, I'm learning. I'm learning. I'm
Well,
learning.
they talk loud. They talk loud when they're telling a
Yes,
story.
right.
When they're telling a story, I because I
Yeah.
have through my second marriage, I've inherited 3 more girls, and
Okay.
it's like I have to look at them sometimes and go, "Do you realize you're telling this story to me and not them? Well, what do you?" And
Right.
sometimes Mac, they
Yeah.
don't even know they're loud.
Right,
And,
that's
and
true.
I'm
Oh,
like,
I know. I
shh,
know.
we're at a restaurant. It's like everybody can hear you. You're supposed to be telling the story to this little group at
Oh
the
my
table
god.
here. Let's go.
How old the girls that in second
Well,
grade?
24 is the
Okay,
oldest.
so
She still currently lives with me, and then
okay.
we've got the middle girl is 21, and she's up at school in Santa Barbara, and then we've got a 16-year-old in the house. And out of all the kids, total of 7. Well, I just married off my daughter on Friday.
Oh,
That
congrats.
that was really cool. That was my first one, and she was my oldest and only biological girl. So now I kind of have 6 that door
Okay.
just kind of is a revolving door. It's like
Right,
it,
right, right.
it, the minor league season is over, so Jake's at home, and then he's gone for the summer,
Wow.
but the kids that are in college are home. So it's kind of a revolving door I got going right now.
Yeah,
But
that's
very cool. And girls, I tease the girls and about being loud, but at the same time they compliment the boys being a pain in the ass sometimes as well.
right, right.
Yeah.
But they learn off each other. Like my boys are so great with the girls. I mean, they're on them a lot because of obviously the phone and social media. None of my kids. I think my older son Max is maybe on Instagram, but I don't know if it's a full blow Instagram. But Mason's not on social media. The girls aren't doing that stuff, but my boys are always protective and just say, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to watch this, and the girls don't like it. So I'm not on social media. I don't care to. I told my boys, you're old enough. If you want to be on social media, go right ahead. But I'll tell you one thing, you better have some thick skin if you're going to go on social media, because it is probably 90% negative.
It
And
is.
if you think you're going to pump yourself up, you're wrong. So, but anyways, yeah, I'm too old for that. So I don't know if you're on social media, but I'm too old for that stuff. So
I got it. I got it for this show. We
okay.
pump it out. But most of I, I'm kind of awkward on social media. There's people that really have a knack for it and know
Mhm.
exactly how to create everything. And then there's guys like me. I really don't know what to do. And I'll tell the producer will tell me, he'll say, because I put out a lot of of this show. We do this show twice, 3 times a week. So there's a lot of content going out, and that's easy for me to do. Just put a snippet out. Like a snippet of us will be out tomorrow. It'll be a 40-second clip, kind of previewing our interview. So that's easy for me to put out. But
Okay.
then they say, well, instead, once in a while too, you've got to post something. People want to see something about your life. And I'm just not
Oh,
comfortable with,
no, yeah.
taking a picture at the mall. Here's what I'm
No.
doing. I'll take awkward I'll take awkward pictures, Mac, of my dog at the beach and go, hey, walking the dog. Isn't this awesome? See
Yeah.
the way I'm getting that
What a
content out
beautiful
there?
sunset going on. All right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like, okay. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. I just don't understand where all of a sudden, it used to be everything was private, right? Everybody
Right.
wants to have privacy. And now there's like zero privacy whatsoever. And it's like everybody wants to tell everybody everything about their whole life. And it's like sitting there
Right.
going, why? Like, nobody wants to hear that crap. I mean, yeah, they want to dig in and give you crap. Yeah. But it's just like, no, it's just like, just keep things to yourself. I mean, that's just the way I feel. So crazy.
Walking around, Mark McGwire, what reaction do you get from the kids today? And baseball player kids or kids in general when they get introduced to you? This is Mark McGwire,
Well,
Big Mac.
well,
What's the first reaction?
the kids really don't know who I am. Their
Right.
parents do. Their parents are that age that obviously during the my career, they know who I am. So the parents are telling the kids who I am, and then it's usually really great. I get it all the time that I mean, it's just like, wow, and hey, thanks for baseball, and it like your career was fantastic, and wish we can see you get out there again. I'm like, well, I'm a little too old right now. And then when I drop it on them, I'm like, I've been retired for 22 years, and they're like, no way. Think about that. So I've been retired for 22 years. My career was 16 and a half years. So I've been retired longer than I played, and it's just like, wow, it's just really hard to grasp that. It's just like to our point when we first started talking about how, my second part of my life has been longer than basically my first part. But the kid, great, it's kids. I mean, listen, I love working with young kids, high school kids, college kids. I'm in constant contact with a bunch of kids. My kids are they're both with the Wasserman Group, and I help out their kids, some of the young kids they have in college and in high school. They'll come to my house. I'll work with them in the cage. I'll go visit them, watch games. I'm in contact with guys in the big leagues. I'm in contact with guys in the minor leagues. I mean, I have my foot in the door. It's just people don't know about it. It's just, I don't really care for people to know about it. I really enjoy passing on knowledge. And so when I meet young kids or parents like that, I love talking baseball. I love talking hitting. I mean, I can go on and on and on about talking about hitting. It's just, it's never ending. But the Rolodex in my mind is, I've written down a lot of things, but I mean, there's just like one conversation will lead to another conversation, lead to another conversation. But for the most part, where I live in Orange County, I don't really run into a lot of people that really, it's like, it might happen maybe once a week, if that, a couple times a month that I'll run into somebody that will recognize me, and they're really great. It's just like, hey, how you doing? Hey, great career. And they go on, and I'm sure you probably get this too, but I love it. And they go, hey, do you really look like this guy that played in the big leagues for a long time ago? And I go, yeah, I get that every day. It's like, and then they look back and they go, are you really him? And I'm like, yes, I am. So
Yeah, I'm a shell of him. That's what I tell them.
no, and then obviously, okay, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, obviously today with the cameras on the phones and stuff, so it's always to validate that they've met me. They, usually ask for a photo and stuff, which 99.9% of the time I do it. So
That people sometimes be like, oh, Aaron, you're doing a great job with the Yankees. And I'll look at him and I'll go, listen, that's my little
right.
brother.
Right.
When I was playing, we never got confused. It was always
Wow.
Brett, and Aaron was my little brother now, but I understand that's life and
Yeah.
that goes on. Media opinion. Everybody's got an opinion of Mark McGwire. A lot of the people with these opinions weren't even around during our time.
Mhm.
What do people get wrong about Mark McGwire? What do they get right? And we're talking the man, the player.
Well, I mean, really, they don't know me because I didn't expose myself to them. I think, if they look at a lot of the media clips and stuff 25 years ago, 30 years ago, you're basically just giving them a general answer to a question. I'm not like today, it's like I'm not having a camera walk around and watch my life go like most of these kids do today. And I just say that probably 98% of the people don't know who the heck I am inside. And that I'm, just a normal person that was given a God-given ability to hit home runs. And I worked very, very hard at my craft, not knowing that I could be that good. And like when we got together at SC, like I told the people in the stands listening, is that I walked into USC as a pitcher. I walked out of USC leading the nation in home runs with 32 in 1984. I played on the United States 84 Olympic team. I played on the 83 Pan American team. I mean, these are things that, when I was pitching in high school, I never dreamt and thought about any of that stuff. But it's just one of those things that, a lot of people don't think about going back and seeing, the craft and how my whole career, not that I've let anybody in there, but it's out there, how you can walk in the door in college thinking you're going to be Tom Seaver and walk out of the door in college thinking you're going to be Dave Kingman,
Yeah.
So it just, again, I think the thing is just nobody really knows who I am. They're not around me, which is fine. It doesn't matter if they they know who I am. But if they sit down and talk to me and get to know who I am, I'm a pretty damn good guy.
When we played against each other, we didn't know each other well, but we were very friendly. And I got to know you a tiny bit, but tell me if I'm wrong. Because as players, as peers, we kind of have opinions of our opponents, guys that we don't know. So half the time, more than that, I'm wrong about stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember during that time, 98, 99, when you hit 65, you hit 70, the fanfare that came with it, the absolute, you went from a player like the rest of us to, okay, it's kind of a circus on this. It's a sideshow and it's every day and
Yeah.
it's the BP thing. And you had to deal with that
Yeah.
as a player, as an opponent on the outside looking in. My opinion was, Mac loves it. My opinion was, and tell me if I'm right, Mac loved this game. He's passionate about this game. He's doing something obviously really special right now, but he could deal without the fanfare. But the problem
Oh,
is when you hit 70, fanfare
yeah.
doesn't give a shit. It's going to follow you. And you
Right.
probably already knew, hey, I knew what I signed up for. If you're going to hit this many home runs, this is what comes with it. But tell me how right on I am of that assessment at that time in your life.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. Obviously today's different because of social media and kids put themselves out there and, what college can you go to that will teach you what happened to me in baseball is going to happen? It just doesn't happen. It's sort of evolved. Um, I mean, you go all the way back to 1987, my rookie year, where I barely played the first month of the season. And then next thing you know, I had 33 home runs at the All-Star break in my rookie year. And they're talking about me breaking Maris's record in my rookie year. Then you fast forward to 98 and it happened. But it's still, you don't process that. And the media wasn't like it is today, or it wasn't like it was in 98, but it's not an easy task. I don't care what anybody says. They will get short with the media because they just need to sell a story. So they try to be, smart with asking sort of a different question that might really tip me off. And, I might not having a good day that day and it might get me to where I'm a little pissed off. So what? But then I get labeled as an ornery, not a happy guy, um, you know, it's just one of those things where it's just like, that's where I'm thinking, wait a minute. They don't really know who I am. Nobody really got to try to get to know who I am. I think Rick Riley did. I believe he did. He did an article about me in Sports Illustrated 98. Think about it. I have an unbelievable relationship with my ex-wife, raising my son, Matthew, who's 36, and he's married and he's going to have his first kid at the end of the month. It's like, nobody really wanted to talk about that. It's like, how do you go through a divorce and have a great ex-wife that's married to an unbelievable person, her husband? And it's just like, it was a great relationship. My marriage didn't work out with her. It's like, okay, but we worked raising my son, Matt, through that whole time, throughout my whole career. It wasn't easy to do, but it's like, I think Rick touched on that a little bit. People got to know a little bit about that and how difficult that was. I mean, think about it. This was well before. It's funny when I tell my kids, and probably the same thing with you, the airports back in those days where you could just run up to the airplane at the very last minute and run on the plane, right? I remember doing that all the time. And I used to, up in the Bay Area, I used to take a morning flight before a game, fly all the way down to Orange County, get off the plane. I would pick my son, Matt, up. I'd get the next plane back, fly back up, and I would go to the ballpark. And I did that for, I don't know how many years, and play that weekend. And then I would, that next Monday, I would take the early flight back to Orange County, drop them off, and then get back on a plane and fly back home. I mean, that wasn't easy, and think about it, and then go play baseball. and then concentrate and then focus somebody throwing 90 plus at you, and then, it's just one of those things. It's like, you know, we grew up in the time where people didn't expose their whole life to everybody. And I understand today's different. And if you want to do that, great, that's fine. But, to your question, yeah, the media doesn't know who I am, and it's like, even if they want to ask and do something and do a documentary or something like that, and like, there's always some sort of something they want to get, something that's going to cause like a riff or something. There's there's what is a good feel story anymore? There's not a good feel story anymore. There's always some little niche they want to get to. And it's like, how about having some good feel stories today about whoever it may be, and instead of something to
About
where,
anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like this. I mean, this whole world is so screwed up right now. Everything's freaking negative, and the way everything in a country's run, it's just like ridiculous what's going on. So, I mean, and I never became political until these last probably 4 or 5 years. It's like, it's unbelievable. And obviously, because now that I'm retired, I sit and watch a lot of that stuff. But, when I was playing, I didn't know what was going on in political part of our country and all the stuff that,
Isn't it
you know,
amazing? Isn't it
yeah.
amazing what for me, my kids are going through, from these political times.
Oh my gosh.
And now, 16-year-olds are having political conversations. And I tell
Oh,
people all the time, I said, I can honestly say that in my life until recently, I
mhm.
never had a political argument. I never had something more than teasing type argument politically in a clubhouse. Not one time did I ever have a political conversation that got ugly or somebody got their feelings hurt. Never. It just wasn't a part of our life. It didn't exist. It was very surface stuff, and that was just for people that had nothing else to do. They got real political. But for us,
Right.
it wasn't like that. The world wasn't like that for us growing up. We didn't know what politics were when we were 17, 18-year-old
No.
playing high school baseball. We had no clue. All these kids nowadays, they're up to date. And I think that's, once again, social media.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's
You
like,
hang
yeah,
out on TikTok long enough, you'll start to
yeah.
evaluate how many
Propaganda
times
out there is ridiculous. It's
how
just
many
the
times do you
propaganda.
right, how many times you hear a kid, well, they're all right nowadays, and I say, "How do you know that?" "Oh, I Googled it." "Oh,
Yeah,
so
right.
now you're the king? You know everything now, right?" It's
Yeah,
just yeah.
I come from the school, there's always 2 sides to a story, you know what I mean? And it's like, now it's like there's no middle section. There's no middle anymore. There's like, it's just left or right, and it's like there's no middle, there's no, like, common sense. Let's
Rational
have a
thinking. There should be a
rational thinking.
rational
It's like, whatever
thinking. It's
happened to
not that
rational
tough.
thinking? It's like,
Right.
yeah, you think about the debates. It's like debates, it's like everybody has debates. I mean, it's like, okay, so you have a debate. But, now it's just like, it's screaming, yelling. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's like, we got to get this under control, because it's not good for our kids. It really isn't good for our kids. And it's like, if you're going to be on TikTok and be on certain things and not get both sides of the story, you're doing yourself a disjustice, I think. Then make a
All
pick.
right.
Then pick what you want to, if you get both sides of the story.
Right. Get back to coaching, because I really like this conversation on the hitting side of things. I can talk hit and Mac all day, all night. And it's not necessarily the physical. And oh, you're dropping your elbow, do this, this, this.
Mm.
I love talking, and I learned this later in my career when I went back to Seattle in the early 2000s. I really got to a point where I thought through 162 games, and I had a plan, and I had a plan that I executed each and every day, and I wasn't always successful, but over the long haul, I felt like it gave me the best chance to be successful for me.
Mhm.
And I learned that, but that came with time, and that came with a lot of failure and a lot of ups and downs and a lot of humble pie. Edgar Martinez and myself sat down and we came up with a plan for me, and I put it into action, and it worked. And at that point, I was a 10-year veteran and I'd been through a lot. I've been through some great years and some tough years, and I was willing to learn, and it really helped me a lot. And 2010, you took 9 years in between last time you played, and you became you went back onto the field in uni. You signed with the St. Louis Cardinals. Your Tony La Russa brought you back as the hitting instructor. You were there for 3
Yeah.
years. How was that for you? I can tell by the way you talk, you love talking the game. You love passing on knowledge to young hitters. How was that for you, though, coming back 9 years in between? And it's not just any hitting coach. I hate to quit pounding on this, but it's what you did in 98, still in 11 years later, it's still fresh. People around you they know the whole thing. They watched it. And it's not just some hitting coach coming in, it's Big Mac. And not only that, is how beloved you were in St. Louis. Take me through that first day you're back on the field. Was it surreal? How did people engage
Yeah,
with you?
it was surreal. It was definitely a learning on the job experience. I'll tell you that, because it's like if you think you can just walk in there and just be a hitting coach or just a coach in general, especially being out of the game for 9 years, it's and Tony told me that Tony had been trying to get me back there for years, not as a coach, but coming to the spring training, and I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I could have easily played another 5 years. I just retired. I retired because I got just tired of being injured. And then I grew up in the game where I saw Reggie Jackson, I saw Don Baylor, I saw quite a few players that just hung on at the end of their career. And I always told myself as a young player, I'm not going to do that. And so I could have stayed after 2001. I actually had a 2-year deal that I never signed for $30 million that I walked away from. I could have played at least the 2 years, but I know I could have played for another 5. But I just got tired of all this stuff, and I retired. I got married, started a family, did some things that obviously I wanted to do to get away. And then Tony, asked me to come back, and I come back, and it was surreal. It was like you walked in there, and the one thing that when you're a player and you have Edgar that helps you out, I had a few players that helped me out too, but it really is about you. It's about you, your preparation and what you can do for yourself. And it's not being selfish. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of selfishness, but you have to be that way in order to prepare yourself to be good, to go help your ball club. If you're helping yourself, you're helping the ball club out.
Right.
But the eye-opening thing was coaching was you have to try to get in touch with 15 to 20 to 25 hitters throughout the year, maybe more. I mean, obviously now it's even more. They bring up guys left and right. And the biggest thing is you got to find out what makes them tick. And it's not about the physical, it's about mental. You got to figure out if this guy is soft, if this guy's tough, what's it. And to me, you show your true colors through failure. You show your true colors when you're 0 for 15, 0 for 20. You show me what you're going to do. If you're a calm, collective guy, you say you're going to get out of it. I mean, that's those guys are easy to work with. But the majority of the kids today are panicked. They panic, and they want to fix. They want a really quick fix, and nothing's a quick fix. I don't give a shit who you are. Listen, I've talked to, and I've stayed in touch through the years through guys that are in the Hall of Fame. Guys are still playing today. If I can show you the texts on my phone with these big leaguers right now, the stuff that they've texted me throughout the season, and the insecurity that these guys have, insecurity these guys have that are making $20, $30 million a year that are still playing today. If I showed you those things, you would. And I tell young kids today when I still work with them, and it's like, they go, no way. I'm like, this is what I'm telling you. It doesn't matter if you're 17 years old or if you're at the end of your career at 35. It's like every year you go into the game, there's almost this like little like insecurity, like how's my year going to be? Because never a year is never the same. So my thing is when you get into coaching is how do you try to get that across to all the hitters? And then on top of that, who's going to take it in? Who's going to believe it? It's impossible that everybody gets along. I mean, it's oil and water. It's just like, not, everybody's a teammate, but doesn't mean everybody likes each other. Doesn't mean everybody's going to understand each other. And that's the toughest thing today. It's like one of the toughest things today is everybody has their own hitting coach. Everybody has their own pitching coach. I don't give a rat's ass if you got another hitting coach. Tell me what you're working on so I can watch it. And I'm going to tell you something that I'll guarantee you, your hitting coach, I can see shit that your hitting coach can't see because I can see little fingernail. I can see things that are off in a heartbeat that's going to throw a swing off. That I have an eye for that. I really do. And it's like half the time when I'm talking to people and their parents are around or other coaches around, and I see little things and I'm a stickler at the small things because small things lead to big things. And if you don't stamp out the small things, those big things are going to create a huge problem for you. And so these are little things that when I got into coaching, you start bringing on these young kids. And then I find out throughout the year, like none of these kids have heard this stuff. And then I'm thinking, sitting there, man, I really like this job because to me, I wish I had a coach like that when I was playing. I had some great coaches, don't get me wrong. But the majority of the hitting stuff that happened throughout my career was all self-done. It was all me figuring out myself. It was all about me swinging in my room. I say this all the time to these kids. I used to swing in my room almost every day in the off season with a fungo. So I understood the path. I understood feeling hitting in bare feet is probably one of the best things you can do to understand where your feet are at. If you're in your bare feet, your feet have to work a little bit differently when they're in shoes or spikes or whatever. And you want to know your base. You want to know your lower half. Everything's dictated from the feet up. Feet, ankles, knees, hips. Stronger, more secure your lower half is, the faster your hands are going to be. If your lower half is insecure, it is impossible for your hands to be fast at all. Impossible. Your hands are only as fast as how secure your feet are in the ground. And I will challenge anybody to that.
That is an awesome, and you're right. You don't hear that every day. I watched you through your career. People have commented on, asked me about Mac, and I said, Mark was different when he was in Oakland. And you look at your stance, look at where your toes are.
Oh, yeah.
In St. Louis, you were more spread out and your toes were opposite direction.
Well, my toes, listen, to me, it was a feeling. So
it was a big bat. You went from that big bat, skinny handle to in St. Louis. I remember picking up one of your bats and it was similar to what I was using. We were both, and I'm going, I remember Mac having the skinny handle, big barrel in Oakland. And all of a sudden, I think you were like a 4.2 in St. Louis, right or wrong?
I mean, 4.2 as far as bats?
4.2, 34-inch, 32.
No. I used the same bat. The same bat I used my whole career. It's just Rawlings sort of changed. Yeah, Rawlings sort of changed. So when I was in Oakland, it was a Rawlings 256B. And then when I got to St. Louis, they changed it to Mac 2.5s. So it actually was a Davey Lopes bat that I got in 1984 instructionally. So my attorney at the time, I didn't have an agent, I had an attorney. And he got me a deal with Rawlings, which was unheard of for the minor leagues. I got 24 real bats, not those balsa wood of Louisville bats they used to give all the minor leaguers. So I got 24 Rawlings bats. So they had, at the time, they were saying, you need to pick a bat. And so Oakland sent down a bunch of all the bats from the big leaguers left over from the 84 season. And I went in the bag and I picked it out. And it said Davey Lopes. And on the bottom, the knob, it said 256B. And I was like, wow, this is nice. It's sort of a medium handle. It's like a medium barrel. And I went and played that game. And I think I hit a home run or two that day. And I'm like, this is my bat. 34.5, 33 inches. Never changed it. It got to the point when somebody brought it in, and whoever wrote back in the day, somebody took a pen and wrote on the knob of the bat. They wrote McGwire, spelled it out, and then they wrote what the ounces were. And I'll tell you what, I could, and it had to be 33 ounces. I could feel if it was 32.5. I could feel if it was 33.5 or whatever it was. I just knew. And I used that bat. Now, Rawlings throughout the years, the label, now I don't think they have the labels, the little stripe they put on it. Back in the day, early days, it was down more towards the handle. But then something happened with the league office, and so they put the label up a little bit higher. So it actually made the barrel look a little bit smaller. And then now I don't even think they have those little round stickers on them or the paint on them. So it was the same bat. I used that same bat throughout my whole career. Now, if there might be in a game or two that I probably, if I didn't have one available, I just picked up whoever's bat, but to me, it was just like that Rawlings bat was everything to me. And I don't know about you. It's like, did you ever use like a weighted bat or swing a weighted bat or put a donut on or anything like that? See, I was from the school, and I know they've done studies on this. It proves absolutely nothing if you use a weighted bat and then go up there and hit. You're not fast at all. And I heard that really young in my career. If I ever did put a weight on my bat, it was just I always did this thing with my wrist because I wanted my wrist to be as flexible as possible. And so I just did that. And then I hardly ever took a practice swing on the on deck circle. And I get people ask me that all the time. What do you think my answer is? Why do you think I didn't take a practice swing on the on deck circle?
I've got no idea.
I didn't want to waste any. So it's like you swing so much. Why am I going to swing more on the on deck circle when I can spend my time concentrating on that pitcher, the release, the fingers, and stuff like that. So
I would use a a donut, and it's almost like we talked about golf earlier. And by the way, I did check out the skills challenge that you won, and that was very impressive to beat the big boys. I would put a weight on my bat. I would put a weight on my bat just to almost like I'm late to the range. I got to play today. I'm getting older. My back hurts, so I've got to loosen up. So how can I get loose as quick as possible? Well, it seemed like I wouldn't grab a driver or an iron. I'd probably grab something heavier. Like I'd probably grab 3 irons because I don't know why psychologically it feels like it's going to stretch me out quicker. That's the only reason. I never believed in put this heavy weight on it and make the bat feel lighter. Believe me, Mac, for me, my problem wasn't swinging hard, and I didn't need a lighter bat. I needed a heavier bat to keep me in check.
To slow you down a little bit. Right.
But I think it wasn't anything psychological. It was just more loose and all right, I need something for me to do on deck. I wasn't a big guy that would sit there and take a lot of swings on deck. I might take a few, but it was just more, all right, I'm loose. I feel hot, ready to go. Now let's do it. And now I'm doing what you're doing. I'm watching the pitcher. Because my whole thing was based on my approach to hitting later in life was based on who's hitting in front of me, who's hitting behind me. What's the track record with the guy? If Edgar's hitting behind me, we've already had this discussion a half hour earlier. What's his history with this pitcher? If I got a base open, are they tending to go after me? They're going to pitch around me depending on what he's done off them. Well, who's in that bullpen? Who's coming in? What have I done against them this year? What have I done against them this series? What kind of pitcher? How are they going to try to probably get me out? Now, I put all that, formulate it, and now each and every at bat, that was my approach. And that's how I approached everything. And I didn't waver. I didn't go up there and abandon my approach because he threw a pitch I didn't think he was going to throw. And sometimes I tip my cap and go, you out chess played me there. But in the long haul, I think I'm going to win. And that's where my hitting approach came from.
Yeah, you said that, you could tip your hat to. I remember Doug Rader was my hitting coach in 92 in Oakland. And when I met with him, because 91 was the worst year of my career, 201, and just really stunk. And it was eye-opening, very humbling. So I made some changes. And to your point of pigeon-toed, leg kick, and then now more into the ground. And that's when I started learning into the ground and, the strengths built from the ground up. But Doug said to me, he goes, And it was a light bulb that went off. It was as simple as this. Do you understand that that pitcher's getting paid a lot of money to get you out? And, and some days he's going to get you out. And I went, "Ugh." That was like light bulb went off. I was like, it just made things so much like smoother and understanding that that guy's going to stick it up you know what, and that's okay. Now, how do I get over that? I process it. How did he do it? Did I get myself out, or did he just overpower me? Did I outthink myself? And that's why I always lived like 35, 40 minutes away from the ballpark because I enjoyed driving home, listening to no music, going over what happened that night. And then by the time I drove into the garage, closed the garage door, I walk into the house, that day was over with. And I started thinking about the pitcher
Yep.
tomorrow.
Yep.
And then it's like you talk to the point about coaching, like you start talking about this to kids, they understand it, but they're like, wow, that's a lot of work. And you go, yeah, it's a lot of work. This is your freaking job, dude. Like, why wouldn't you use every resource possible and do the things that how do you know how great you could be? Now you're really good, but how do you know how great you can be if you started adapting this into your thought process rather than thinking about where is my hands, where am I mechanically? Let's go look at my swing all the time. When 99% of the time you make an out, it's usually what you swung at. It's like, and it's usually a pitch that you're not capable of doing. And when you go 0 for 20, I will guarantee you, let's go look at your pitch selection. And if your pitch selection sucked, so then why are you worried about your mechanics? Your mechanics are going to be horseshit if you're swinging at pitches that you aren't capable of hitting. So why would you even
throw at
think
the
about
rosin
it?
bag? You'd swing at the rosin bag.
Right. It's like, so you're making something out of nothing when it has to just go to your pitch selection and just understand that and then how that like simplifies things. And then to the point of what Doug Rader said, it's like, he's going to get you out sometimes. It's going to be really tough. Okay. Turn the page. Let's go down to the next play. And then I'll guarantee you the next time I face that pitcher, if he stuck it up my, you know what? I know he's not going to be as on as he was the night that he stuck it up my butt. It's just like, hey, I have a great idea. He's not going to change. Pitchers really don't change that much. So they're not going to invent pitches over the year. Some do, but they're not totally convinced that they're going to be successful with a new pitch during the season. That's why like spring training is sort of a crapshoot because guys are always experimenting on new pitches. But then when the bell rings, they go right back to their old faithful. And so, yeah, they might add a fourth or fifth pitch. I sit there and go, all right, great. You're only going to have one or two pitches throughout that night, that day you pitch that you're going to be dialed in on. But these are all things that, like, when I was coaching and when I still teach today, these are things that bring attention to these young kids that they don't know because they don't speak this language anymore. It's all about, let's look at the computer. Let's look at your swing path. Let's look at your exit velo. Which is totally fine. That's great. I'm not saying no good, but I will guarantee you, if you put more concentration on your game plan and what you see and how you got yourself out, how you got hits, that's going to outweigh looking at a computer, looking at your swing angles, or, well, why am I not keeping my bat in the barrel? Oh, well, we can go to that later, but let's see what you're swinging at first.
Well, I think too, it's like to these young hitters, especially young hitters, mature veteran guy, maybe he can handle this. But from a psychological standpoint, when you're you haven't established yourself yet, you're just breaking in. These exit velos and all that stuff, I think, can be a detriment because all of a sudden your exit velo, hey, this offseason I was averaging 97, and wait a minute, it's only 95.8. Their brain's spinning when it shouldn't be thinking about anything like that. Is that ball squared up, and did you make the outfielders turn their back into that right center gap? That's good. We don't care what the exit velocity is. You hit that ball 10 rows deep into the seats. Is that good? Well, I've never hit a homer that wasn't good. So, yes, it's good. Does it matter what my exit velocity is? Is this a video game, or is this about results? Putting a good swing on the ball and seeing a result because of it. So I just think too much information in the wrong hands can be a detriment to not only their game but their development because they're so worried. I go down to the cages and my son's getting ready for a minor league season. You got 4 or 5 other guys in there and they got that Rapsodo up and everybody's every swing and it's loud in those cages and I can
Mhm.
tell that ball's smoked. What's the first thing? It's Rapsodo. How fast was it? And you're expecting big things, like you said, 122. That ball that you hit to me was 120 plus. But if it was 118, you'd be thinking, shit, 2 years ago, that ball I hit to Booney would have been 122. I'm losing it. I
Right.
just don't. I think there's a lot of downside to. I think there's a lot of upside to data and
Oh, yeah.
having as much information, but having too much information sometimes there can be a negative to that side.
Well, I totally agree with you. But that's, you can't fault these kids for this because this is how is being taught today, which
Right.
is really unfortunate being the only way that's going to be taught. And then you have somebody like me come in or you come in and start talking about the mental part of it. The unfortunate, not that these kids aren't going to get it, but the unfortunate thing is it's like most of these, especially the big leaguers today, the young ones, the guys that have been there for a while, they can do it themselves. But the young kids, they have successful minor league careers, right? And they get to the big leagues. What happens when they get to the big leagues? To your point, they're throwing all this information that just gets their mind going like this. And I'm like going, wait a minute, they didn't get all this information in the minor leagues and they were freaking studs. Why are they struggling in the big leagues? Is because they get in the box and they're thinking about all the fucking information you're giving them, which is absolutely, it's like, what? Let's just simplify it. What did you do in the minor leagues? I got up there, I had my game plan, I'm going to do it. There's no reason for you to, and then what happens after that? They go 0 for 10, 0 for 15. Next thing you know, they're working on whatever they are working on, their swing, their exit velo. And I sit there and go, wait a minute. It's what you're swinging at. And where's your mindset? What are you swinging at? Your game plan. And what's your mindset? Again, if you're swinging at shit or you're thinking about a percentage rather than thinking about your location and your hot zone, why would anybody in their right mind get off their hot zone or what they're really good at during any pitch during the ball game? Why? Why would they do that? Oh, I'm going to think about a percentage when I'm 0-2, this guy, I was told 85% slider down and away. Why the hell would you look for a slider down and away? That's not even in your hot zone. Listen, bottom line is you will become a successful major league hitter, guaranteed, by hitting pitchers' mistakes. You are not going to be a successful major league hitter if you hit pitchers' pitches. You'll have like a cup of coffee and you'll be gone. Guaranteed. But the problem is the information that they're usually giving them is all about what the pitcher gets you out on rather than where does a pitcher get his fucking tits lit? Where does he get his tits lit? Where does this slider back up to? Where does this fastball back up to? Where does he miss with it? Whatever it may be. You know what? And I'll bet you guess 90% of the time it's probably in your hot zone. And you're thinking about something out of your hot zone when you're behind in the count. When you have to think about your hot zone, you just open it up a little bit. Listen, you only have 17 inches to work with, right? Right? 19 inches now because they give you an extra inch with the computerized strike zone. So
Right.
It's 19 inches, not 17. So it's like you're only going to be able to be really good by hitting 8.5 inches of that plate. You are not going to be very good by hitting 17 inches. You will not. That's called in between, and you'll be finding yourself having a cup of coffee and see you later. So in order for you to not, it's like, do not, if anybody gets anything out of this, do not leave your hot zone. That's all I can say. And if you ask kids today what their hot zone is, I bet you majority of them probably can't even tell you what their hot zone is. They probably can't tell you what they're really good at. I know what I was really good at. Middle, down, and in. Man, I was really good at that. And then what were you really good at? What was your hot zone?
For me, my hot zone was bit up and away from me. And I'd look there, and I had the ability to
Right.
3-1, 2-0 because I got to a point in my life where I could hit a ball out of right center as easy as I could hit it to left. And where do most pitchers want to go? They want to go down and away when they need a strike, or away when they need a strike.
Right.
Give me that strike. I took
And
that
where do
away from
most,
them.
yeah, and where do most miss? Most miss middle in. It's
You know
like
the thing that
it's like
exactly what you're talking about. You know who used to wear me out, Mac, when I was young was Al Leiter. And what did he do?
cutter.
He threw a cutter every pitch, and then my
Mhm.
ego gets in the way. I'm going to show him. He keeps coming in here, and I'd rip one off the tarp for strike one. I really showed him, didn't I?
Yeah.
When I finally got a little bit older and a little wiser, and I thought, well, I'm going to quit looking for that stupid cutter in because usually it's a ball.
Okay.
I chase it or I hook it. I'm going to look for out over the plate and wait for when
Mistake.
that cutter in is in the middle of the plate. That's when I'm
Yeah,
going to
it's a
hurt it.
mistake. Right.
Not
To
when
my
it's right
point.
on the edge,
Yeah, so that's my point. So you fell in the trap, which I've done that too. And it's like I'm speaking from experience because of my failures. It's like, so
right?
you're middle up and away, and all of a sudden they say, "Hey, Al Leiter's pitching tonight." Okay, well, I'm gonna look for cutter in. Well, now it's his out pitch, and that's not
Right.
even your strength. And you're like, if I was your hitting coach, like, what are you doing? Come on. It's like you have to wait him out to the point of Doug Rader. There's going to be nights that he is going to stick it up here, you know what? And it's like you tap it, you just tip your hat to him, and it's like, okay, I'll move on. But Al Leiter is not going to hit that zone every time. It's just like Mariano Rivera is not going to hit it all the time. It's like Randy Johnson didn't going to hit it all the time. It's just all those guys. It's like, but you have to understand, you're going to make and have a successful major league career if you stay in your hot zone and you make a living on hitting pitchers' mistakes. Guaranteed.
That is awesome. You went to the Dodgers, you went to the Padres, you were a bench coach. You like that? And what was the biggest thing? You retired in 01. Last year, I believe you were on the field was 18.
Yeah. Well, that was
Did you notice a big difference in that 17-year gap? Just not only how the game is played, but the personalities of the players, just the overall everything. How big of a difference did you notice from player to 2018 bench coach?
Their work ethic wasn't it as their work ethic. Well, it's just, you know, and I think social media got a big play in that stuff. And, you know, guys, it was sort of, listen, I enjoyed my time in San Diego. You know, it's just, we weren't given the best team at all. Unfortunately for Andy Green, I really thought Andy Green might get a job this year, managing somewhere. It's one of the smartest guys I've ever been around. And to me, it was like being next to Tony La Russa. I think it was the bench coach thing. It was just like, it was a different thing. It was a challenge. I took it as a challenge to be a bench coach. It was one of those things where I didn't have my thumb on really anything hitting wise. I didn't have my thumb on anything. It's like, I sort of felt like I wasn't really having, it was just a weird feeling going to the ballpark every day. Let's just tell you, I was shagging at 130 out in the shagging a lot. Let's just say that for early hitters. That was what I was doing. And I was sitting out there going, what am I doing? It's like, because it's like we had 2-3 hitting coaches, and you can't, it's just like the kids today is just but what I saw there was the work ethic isn't what I thought it could be. And but I didn't have much of a voice down there. And and then my sons got to the age where I had another year left in my contract, and I walked away from that because I just thought, listen, I want to be with my sons. They were freshmen, sophomore in high school, and we had to go through all that travel stuff, and they were a little bit late to it, but things have worked out. But it's just like, didn't get any calls to any interviews for any managerial jobs. I thought maybe that might be a one of those things, but yeah, it was the hitting. Listen, hitting coach is probably one of the toughest jobs in the sport itself. It's just like I said, like when I got back into it, it was I mean, man, if you've it's tough when you have to take on everybody's personality and not everybody's feeling great every day. You get blamed for the guy's not doing well. But the thing is I just enjoy passing on knowledge. And the thing is like I tell them, I go, look, I'm passing this stuff to you. I didn't really learn how to hit till I was 26, 27 years old. If I pass on to you when you're like 22, 23 years old, you're ahead of the ball game. It's just about throwing that fishing line out and see if somebody gets a bite. I can see somebody's mind working, but unfortunately it's like, coaching days are over in the big leagues. I've never had a call since I walked away from it, but I really enjoy watching my kids play just like you watch your kids play. And hopefully I got years more of doing that.
When I was a kid at SC, I'm watching you guys and those early A's teams, and they were fun to watch, with Ricky, and it was the Bash brothers, and it was Eck and Dave Stewart, who I was a few years away from getting to the big leagues, but I was at SC 88, 89, 90, and I ended up getting to the big leagues in 92 and got to face some of those guys. What do you remember about those early years? You won the World Series in 1989. That was the Bay Bridge when that collapsed.
Yeah.
Take me through that 89 season. It was your world champion. You won a World Series championship as a coach. You won one as a player, 89. Just take me through the 89 and that whole young A's team that everybody was watching, always the favorite. Went to the World Series in 90, got beat by a Reds team that nobody expected. Just sum up those days.
88 got beat by the Dodger team that wasn't expected either. Well, listen, I was blessed, absolutely blessed. 80. Well, I got called up in, the end of 86, and then I won the job or won a spot. I was the last guy in 87. 87, I think we finished around, I think close to 500, maybe a little bit over 500. And then 88, we go into spring training. And this is something that, if you look at most of the World Series teams that have won probably the last 20 some odd years or more, what do they always have? They always have really good homegrown players. And that's what Oakland was. It was a bed of homegrown players. I mean, you look at Terry Steinbach behind the plate, myself at first base. You look at Tony Phillips at second base, Walt Weiss at shortstop. Carney Lancer wasn't a homegrown player, but he was our captain at third base. You got Stan Javier out there in center field. He was utility center field along with Dave Henderson. And then we went out and we got, the Haas family, the owners of Levi Strauss, were the owners back in those days. And when Tony and Dave Duncan went up, at the, bet trade deadline and talked to Sandy Alderson and Walt Jocketty and Walter Haas and Walter Jr. Haas. And they said, what do you need? And they would pretty much do what they need to do, bringing in Ricky, bringing in these little free agents, making trades, Willie McGee, Willie Randolph back in those days. I mean, it was just like, it was incredible. And it was like, they knew what they had, but it all started with the nucleus of the minor league. And it just seems like they still do it. I mean, think about it. Even though Oakland's going through some really hard times the last few years, they still really know how to develop. And that's how you start with a championship team. And I was lucky enough to be in 88. 88 team was fantastic. We got our butts beat. Why? I don't really know. The Dodgers were hot. It just seems like the hottest team at the end of the year ends up winning it. I think, 88, 89, and 90. I think obviously the leagues were different. There was only two leagues, right? We never played the National League. There was no interleague play. So we usually wrapped up winning our division like 3 weeks before the season was over sometimes. So we had a big lull. And you see how it really hurts a lot of teams. They're talking about it now in the World Series. The teams that win 100 games, they were out in the first round. Mm-hmm. But I was really, really lucky about being on that team. We had great nucleus. And then 89, we learned from the loss of 88. In 89, we had a chip on our shoulder in 89. And it was funny, joking, even being around Tony. It's just like, it was one of those teams where you just threw the balls and bats out there and we were going to kick your ass. And it was just that we were that good. Unfortunately, we had a horrendous earthquake that stopped the play. And to we had to go down to Phoenix and practice down in Phoenix for 5 or 6 days, and it was 10 days later, and we come back and we won out 4-0 against the Giants. But it was one of those, again, you hear it all the time. It's a childhood dream come true that you sit there as a young kid and thinking about. I mean, I used to watch baseball all the time when I was a kid. I still remember laying on the floor, seeing Hank Aaron hitting, 715. And it was just like incredible off Al Downing. And it's just, I was laying on the floor watching that, and Vin Scully making the call. And then all of a sudden you get an opportunity to be in one of those great games and historic game, a World Series in my third year, being in a World Series my second year, then and winning a World Series in my third year, being in a World Series in my fourth year and getting smoked, but still the experience of that. And then I'm not getting back into the playoffs until 92. And then unfortunately, as I was older in St. Louis, 2000 and 2001, unfortunately, I had 2 injuries that really didn't get to play at all much in those playoffs and didn't advance very well. But boy, I wish I would have had another shot at that, being healthy and stuff. But I mean, experience that, and I got the trophies, having it in my office, and one of the little miniature trophies. We got a chance to buy one of those things, and obviously the trophy is a little bit different looking now, but it's the one with all the flags on it and stuff. So. Just an incredible feat. Something I'm very proud of being in Oakland A. And unfortunately, what's happening with Oakland up there, it's very unfortunate what's happening up there. And but I was very proud to be in Oakland
A. I've had Tony on the program, and I know how fond he is of you. I had a very healthy respect for a Tony La Russa. I played against him for years and years with Oakland, with St. Louis. I always tease him. I teased him when he came on the show. I said, "Well, you can't drill me on this show."
He got such a bad rap for that shit, dude.
But I always had a real healthy respect for him and his ball clubs. Just tell me, and it comes up when you were mentioning Walt Weiss, good buddy of mine, a Willie McGee. It seems like Tony always, the players that he had in Oakland, they were always welcome wherever he was, and he was always trying to go get his guys. Just wrap up Tony a little bit and your relationship with him over the years.
Well, he's like a second father to me. I pretty much owe everything to Tony to give me that shot in 87 in spring training. I got called up in 86, at the end of 86, when he was fired in, I believe it was 86. He got fired by the White Sox, and happened at the All-Star break in 86, he was hired by the Oakland A's and the Haas family. So I got to play for him at the end of my just a little cup of coffee I had in 86. And then I went into spring training in 87. In the minor leagues, they had me working at third base. I was first base at USC. They moved me over to third base because of my arm. And we had another first baseman that he was left-handed hitter, Rob Nelson, that he was just a first baseman. And so they tried to make accommodating for both of us. And then it turned out that I went back to first base after a while. But I mean, when I got brought up in 86, I was a third baseman. But, Tony was everything. He just expects you to be ready to play every day. I laugh at some of the guys that didn't really care for playing for him. And it's just like, I sit there. The only reason why he didn't like playing for him is because he expects you to be ready to play every day. You don't need to take a day off. I mean, think about it. you're only working 3.5 hours a day. Is it that really hard to tow it up for 3.5 hours a day and to play your ass off? It's not that hard. And majority of the players that didn't care for Tony were the players that didn't want to play hard every day. And that's what I have to say about that. He expected, and he pushed me. He pushed me. He got in my ass and he made me better. And that's such a misconception today, which I just don't understand why you can't raise your voice at a young kid to get the best out of them. It means you care about that person. You're trying to get a little bit more out of that person, that athlete, just because it's like you might not see them getting, putting their best effort. And if somebody wants to raise their voice, it's like today it's frowned upon. It's like, it's incredible. It's like, I enjoyed it and it made me better because I realized, like, wow, he sees something in me. He's trying to get more out of me. He's trying to push me. And then, again, it's like one hell of a manager. I mean, you talk about, we talked earlier about analytics and stuff like that. Him and Dave Duncan were doing analytics back in the 80s when computers were basically being started in somebody's garage. It's like, so, Dave Duncan had his own analytics, but he had a pen, all these colored pens. He had them in his big 3-ring binders. He had every team, every pitcher, every player, every hitter. He knew exactly where to play everybody. We had shifts before shifts were even a big thing, and we knew we had game plans against everybody. And it started with, I think Tony and Dave Duncan really started that revolution. And then obviously it's changed hands, and, they have these algorithms now that, guys that basically have never played the game, that were smart kids in school, that are doing these algorithms. Now they're dictating baseball. That's
Their
how far
percentages.
now as far as this game has changed. But Dave Duncan and Tony were, I mean, it's unbelievable how I would look into Tony after every pitch, and he would look at almost every player and he was doing this along, if he saw something a little bit off. It's like, wait a minute, a manager doing that? Ask your brother, does he do that?
Yeah.
Ask your brother if he does that in Yankee Stadium with the Yankees. If you look at every player and go, hey, no, move a little bit. Hey, no, over here. It doesn't happen today. You know why? It's because they give them a little card and they got it in their back pocket today. But on top of that, though, he made us use our own mind too. It's like you had to understand that you had to remember these guys too. So, but he was awesome. And, just, again, father figure, love him to death. And I owe everything to him.
I'm going to do a little rapid fire throughout your life, your career. Going to start at USC. One sentence, whatever comes to your mind. 2 guys I'm going to pick at USC. One of them was teammates of both of us at different ends of our lives. First one's Randy Johnson, SC teammate.
SC teammate that couldn't hit the side of a barn in college and became a Hall of Famer.
This is a weird one, but I picked it for this reason. I think you got him probably when he was a freshman. I got him when he was a 5th-year senior, Rodney Peete.
No, I never had him.
You never had Pete?
No, he wasn't there.
Oh, what a brutal one. All right.
No, he didn't play baseball, no.
He was my third baseman. He was my third baseman.
Oh, was he?
My freshman year. I thought you played with him.
No, I had Jack Del Rio and Jeff Brown.
Jack Del Rio.
Jack Del Rio is probably one of the biggest catchers of the time in college baseball, and became a successful middle linebacker in the NFL and a successful head coach in the NFL. And I think he's defensive coordinator for Washington right now.
All right, we're moving on to Oakland. Ricky. Sentence or 2.
I don't know if that'd be one sentence. Ricky, the nicest, one of the most fun human beings to be around. The only player that I've ever played with that when the light turned on, he turned up his game, like for the playoffs. It was absolutely incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
Eckersley.
Another great human being, but a lot of people don't understand that he smoked a pack of cigarettes before he went down to the dugout or went down to the bullpen, and he was so nervous you couldn't stick a hay needle up his ass when he was on the mound.
Jimmy Edmonds.
Jimmy Edmonds. Wow. Jimmy Edmonds, probably the first hitter that I've ever played with that strictly hit on tips only.
Really?
He could only, when he was struggling, he didn't have a tip on the pitcher.
Willie McGee.
Can I go back to that? I know that's 1 second. I mean, can I go back to that in one sentence? So here, I'll give you a little example about Jimmy Edmonds. Jimmy Edmonds absolutely raked Randy Johnson because Randy Johnson tipped all the time, right? So he told me this one day we were in Arizona. He's like, dude, you got to do it. He's doing this or doing whatever. And I'm like, all right. So I tried it. First at bat, I went up there and I tried it. Struck me out. I was like, dude, I can't see that. I can't concentrate on that shit. I'm going to go back to where he releases the ball and I'm just going to check out the rotation. I'm going to look in my hot zone. Next at bat, homer. I did it on my own. So I was never one of those guys that looked at tips. Jimmy Edmonds was absolutely the best. And he absolutely raked Randy Johnson.
Isn't it amazing how those guys that would, you mentioned a teammate of yours who was a teammate of mine, and I loved him to death, Stan Javier. He was a guy that would always be picking out idiosyncrasies. And you're right. For me, unless it was so blatantly obvious where I didn't have to look for anything, I just wasn't good at that. I didn't have that. And it's fascinating for me. It just shows how different we are as hitters. To hear a guy like a Jimmy Evans, he gets a tip and it's like, wow, he goes to a different level confidence-wise because of the knowledge he has. Whereas me, it's like, I don't really see what you're seeing.
Right. I trusted, like, I didn't like that because I trusted my eyes. I trusted that box, and I got to the point where I can see fingernails and knuckles and, change ups and this and stuff. And I trusted that more than I'm going to trust this little tip and then take me off my game plan to what we talked way earlier about game planning. And, I wanted to stay who I was.
2001, your last year, you got to play with this guy. We've had him on the show. I played against him for a long time. Albert Pujols.
Well, he better be 100% first-time Hall of Famer in 5 years. Absolutely incredible. I don't have a lot of regrets because everything in life is, to me, that's meant to happen. I wish I would have played a few more years left, with him because I knew he was great when I saw him in spring training. And it's a story. This is going to be longer than one sentence, but the story that I've always said, it's like Tony La Russa and Walt Jockey, they were not going to put him on the team in 2001. And this guy would probably hit 600 in spring training. He was playing outfield. He was playing infield. This guy was leaving his feet for everything. And I'm like, are you kidding me, Tony? Seriously, this will be the worst move in your career if you don't put this guy on this team. We need this guy. I don't care where he plays. Obviously he wasn't going to play first base because I had it, but they had him at third base, left field. And it wasn't until the last week of spring training when Bobby Bonilla pulled his hamstring and they had to put him on the DL. At the time it was called DL. Now it's the IL. And that's how Albert made the ball club. But Hall of Famer, to me, a great friend, still in contact with him. When he was playing, we live in the same area. He and I would meet pretty much every All-Star break, and we would hit and go over what he was doing. And unfortunately, when he started having his foot problems, he started having his knee problems. And when you lose your base, you lose everything. And then he got it towards the last year and a half of his career, and he had a ball playing. And when he got let go with the Angels, he had a ball going to the Dodgers, and then he had an unbelievable time finish up his career back in St. Louis.
Yeah, and wow, I remember him as a rookie, and he went on a Nike trip with us. We were kind of giving the rookie treatment, but we all knew how good he was. His rookie year, he hit 329, 37 as a rookie. And I remember saying, Albert, did you get my golf bag? Get it over here, get it packed in. And he was like, "Yes, Mr. Boone," and because we
Yes.
all
Oh
knew
yeah,
how
yeah,
good. We all
yeah.
knew how good he was going to be, and we
Oh
knew a
my
few years
gosh.
from now everybody was going to be getting his stuff. So
Oh,
it was pretty cool.
what an incredible, and the one thing I love about how intense he was, and I loved it because, hey, the great ones are intense. I mean, there's
Yeah,
a reason why he is as great as he is, and I mean, think about it, Booney. It's
he
like,
got 2,200 ribbies.
think about this.
2,200.
22, yeah, right. Think about
It's a
this though.
joke.
The he the greatest first 10 years of
Ever.
anybody that's ever played this game. First 10 years. Think about of the thousands of players that have played and put these spikes on and played this game. And he is the greatest in the first 10 years. And unfortunately, it would have been another great 10 years after that, but his foot and knee problems. But it's just a real special person and a friend of mine.
And the last guy who rode that wave with you was Sammy Sosa. I know at first you guys weren't buddies, but you did. I mean, you're gonna be with him
Yeah, we're linked.
for the
We're
rest
linked
of.
forever.
You're married for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
That's just life.
Yeah. Well,
Seemed like
yeah.
he was the outgoing guy when I talked about you
Mhm.
as the player that you didn't sign. You know what you signed up for, and you knew what came with it, but you could have done without it. It seemed like Sammy was the opposite. Like he kind of liked
Yeah.
that spotlight and putting that smile. And I mean, that's Sammy was a showman. That's what he did.
Yeah. Absolutely. And and I get that asked a lot too. Um, I don't know Sammy very well at all. I just know Sammy from being on the ball field, saying hi to him, doing the stuff, and then what happened that night on 98. It was just that just happened. That was just happened. He came in and we hugged each other and did that stuff, but it was just one of those things where it's like, yeah, he was like, you imagine him today with social media and it's just like, I mean, he was he'd be a social media darling. And just listen, I mean, up until when he got 20 home runs in June and put himself on the map, it's like he was a nice player in the game, right? He was a nice player, but he wasn't well known. I mean, it's like everybody thought it was going to be me and Ken Griffey, because me and Ken Griffey for over the years in Oakland and St. Louis, we would go back and forth for the home run title. And so, I always thought it was Ken Griffey. And then all of a sudden, Sammy hits 20 in June. And then, well, here we are. We're on this. It's a hell of a race. Let's do it. But I enjoyed being around him. Again, I have not talked to him for 22, 23 years. So ever since the last game I ever played against him, that was the last time I ever saw him or talked to him. So I wish him well. Hopefully he can work out things and do something to come back to Chicago. I know Chicago loves him and they want him back, the Cub fans. And so, but I wish him well, and hopefully someday that he and I can reconnect.
I'll let you get out of here in a second, but I had to talk to you about this because this isn't talked about that often. You're an A's Hall of Famer, you're a Cardinals Hall of Famer. I'm not going to ask about the Hall of Fame. You've been asked about that a million times. I got my own uh, feelings about that. What's going on
Mhm.
there? But something that's really cool to me. You're part of that All Century team. You got picked for it. It was
Yeah.
1999. I was on the Braves that one year. It was during the World Series when you guys came in.
Right.
How special is that? I think when I look at Mark McGwire, I know Big Mac that I played against. The thing that bothers me a little bit is everybody, you're known for you're kind of like Hank Aaron. You're known as a home run hitter. But I said Big Mac when he was in St. Louis doing that, he was a hitter, man. He wasn't
Yeah.
just a home run hitter.
I
He was
became
a
a good
pain in
hitter.
the
Yeah.
ass. He was a
Right.
pain in the ass to get out. I mean, you
Right.
hit 299 that year. A couple years later, you hit 312, or it was a couple years
Yeah.
early. But
Well,
you weren't
I
just a home run hitter.
appreciate. Yeah.
You were a tough out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's to our game plan, and obviously experience is everything. But being on that field in Atlanta was incredible, and being up in the box, watching the game. I'm sitting there with, Warren Spahn, Hank Aaron, Pete Rose. I mean, just name it. Just like we're sitting in there, just like I'm with some buddies. I remember Billy Andre, PGA golfer at the time. He lives in Atlanta, and we're sitting in there, and I'm just like, this is one of those moments you sit there and go, do I really belong? Right? I mean, I used to watch these guys as a kid. Now I'm on stage with them, an all-century team. And then they'll go back to another great moment with all these guys was the '99 All-Star game in Boston. That was probably, other than the moment in '99, the World Series that you were at, the All-Star game, and no, not '99, '98. Sorry, '98 in Boston. Sorry,
In
get the years
Boston,
confused.
yeah.
Yeah, when they brought Ted Williams out in every living Hall of Famer and all the great players in the game at that time were congregated on the mound, and Ted Williams is there. And probably one, other than the time in Atlanta, that was probably one of the greatest moments of my life when Ted Williams at the time obviously was losing his sight, and he's in the cart, and you can see Tony Gwynn and Cal Ripken hovering, and then he's like, "Hey, McGwire, where's McGwire at?" And I'm like, I'm right here, Ted." He goes, "Hey, let me ask you a question." He goes, "Does that ever smell like burnt wood when you foul a ball back?" And I started laughing. I said, "Dude," I said, "Ted," I said, "it happens to me all the time." He goes, "That's what I thought. It used to happen to me all the time too." And then that was it. I was like, "Oh my God." I think those are the last words I ever said to him, and God rest him. I mean, it's just like, but what a great moment. Two great moments. Sorry, I sort of topped your one there in
No,
Atlanta.
I love
I
it.
mean, it's all-century team and that all-star, because you'll never get those. I mean, obviously a bunch have passed on, but that time was incredible. Excuse me, incredible.
What do you want your great grandkids to know about you?
I'm just a down home, just a good-hearted, very soft, understanding father, former athlete that worked his ass off for everything everything he's had and has today. And the thing is like, you have to push yourself, and you have to understand what failure is all about. And believe me, I've had enough failures. I've had enough walls in front of my face that I've had to knock through, and not thinking that I can ever get through those things. But it's the times that you get through those things that you sit there and go, holy shit, wow, imagine what it would be like if I didn't bust down that wall. And I don't want my kids, my grandkids, to ever give up on anything, because you won't know until you force yourself through that.
Awesome. Mark McGwire, it's been a pleasure, man. This is a
Booney,
lot of fun catching up and
yeah,
doing this.
thank you very much.
For those of
Appreciate
you,
the invitation, and again, it was great seeing you up at SC, and hopefully our paths will cross sometime soon.
paths will cross sometime too. For those of you watching this on YouTube, welcome. For listening, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.